Hello world. Welcome.
Love is but a song we
Welcome,
sing.
welcome.
Feels the way we die.
Gonna go on a journey tonight, but let's wait for some people to come on in.
Make the mountains ring.
Tonight's Lovestream.
Angels cry. Though the bird is on the wing, and you may not know why. Come on, people now, smile on your brother. Everybody get together, try to love one another right now.
You guys hear my voice? Am I coming through loud and clear? Hello, family.
Some may go.
You heard me. All right. Sound volume's okay. We all level.
When the one that left
Control
us
command
here
center.
returns for us at last.
Voice to the world. I tell you, I used to go running some crazy runs in my life.
We
And,
are but a moment's sunlight.
I had this on sometimes on my second screen. These scenic rural American backgrounds.
Come on, people now. Smile
The soil of America.
Everybody get together. Try to love
The soil of America.
right now. Come on, people now. Smile on your brother. Everybody get together. Try to love one another right now.
What a week. A little loud, I'm hearing. All right. We'll course correct. That a little better? Let me know how you guys are doing in the chat. Give me, show me some love. Show me, let me know how the mood is. I'm in a bit of a weird mood this week. A lot of things have happened.
Come on, people now. Smile on your brother. Everybody get together. Try to love one another right now.
Yeah, I know a lot of you guys don't love the hippie music. That's all right. That's all right with me. It's just mood. The art, not the artist.
If you hear the song I sing,
We're gonna ride this song out, though.
you will understand.
We're gonna ride it out.
Listen. You hold the key to love and fear.
Julie asked, was this planned or last minute? This was last minute tonight. But tonight is an archive night. I'm gonna go through a thread,
Just one
then some current events.
There's
There's a lot on my mind right now. A lot on my mind.
Come on, people now. Smile on your brother. Everybody get together. Gonna love one another right now. Come on, people now. Smile on your brother. Everybody get together. Try to love one another right now. I said, come on, people now. Smile on your brother. Everybody get together. Try to love one another right now. Right now. Right now.
All right. All right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How's everyone doing tonight? It's been quite a week here in the world, and a lot going on. So we're gonna do a little bit of world events, and then I want to spend the night archiving a thread I did almost a year ago, which was about news versus leads. And I also want to get to some Q&A stuff, covering some topics that you guys You guys mentioned on my Twitter thread, so let's start it up. We're gonna start first with the white pill of the day, which is a bit of an old white pill, but it's one that I haven't covered, and it's about Italy. Italy, home to Rome, founding civilization in the Western world. And this was published just about a week ago. Italy's new government plans to defy the EU with plans to deport 500,000 migrants. 500,000. So that is not; those are not rookie numbers. That is a pretty amazing, astounding plan. And if it actually goes through, it will make Italy join the ranks of Hungary, Poland, the V4 bloc, and would be really the first. I guess, do you consider Italy a Western European country? I guess it's sort of Central South, but if Italy goes through with this, that would be potentially the start of wildfire, because what happens in Italy often happens in Portugal and Spain, and if those and Greece, and if those countries are inspired by the strength of Italy, when you combine that with the Eastern European bloc, you could have a powerful coalition on your hands of Europe and Europeans claiming the soil that is their home. So now I want to just talk briefly about why I'm doing these streams, and I've been thinking a lot lately about broad topics like the meaning of life and whether or not you're using this knowledge for good or for bad. I'm going to do a separate stream next week on the topic of suicide. It's a weird topic, but it's a very important one. Let me know in the chat right now how the general mood is. It's going to be a little bit of a somber stream tonight. There's a lot going on. But I want to talk about the topic of suicide because I heard an interesting theory by Luke Ford about people joining the alt-right in a sense as a form of suicide by cop, as a kind of righteous, meaningful death. And I have a lot of thoughts on that topic that stem from my time kind of as in amateur evolutionary psychology. And a fantastic chapter on the topic from the book Evolutionary Psychology, A New Science of the Mind by David Buss, which I'll put a link to in the description, but I consider that to be a living Bible of sorts. Probably the greatest explanatory theory of the world I've ever seen written down, and it changed my life when I read it. But I want to start as a topic here that, well, actually, let me just hear in the chat. Knowing what you know about the world, fam, has this made your life better or worse? Be honest. And that doesn't mean for the future. That doesn't mean if your life is always going to be better or worse because of this. But to date, so far, if you had to be totally honest with yourself, has your life been made better or worse? Have you been hardened by this knowledge, or has it hurt you in a number of ways? And those ways, you can consider them separately as physically. Has your physical health improved or deteriorated? Family, has your family relations, have they been strengthened or worsened? Economic, has your economic life improved or has it deteriorated? And has it deteriorated because you've been attacked or because you have been financially irresponsible or less in control of yourself? And then just generally socially, has this positively or negatively impacted your narrow and broader family relations? I'm going to take a minute here to just put on a little bit of a little bit of music while I read your responses to this, because I think that this, my personal theory on this is that in many ways this knowledge has the potential to be extremely destructive. The truth does. It is a double-edged blade that has a way of cutting yourself even as it cuts through the world and how it works. I read a study about a month ago which said that, and I'll see if I can pull up a direct source for it, but that having racial identity was positive for the health of black people, for Hispanic people. I forget if they covered Jewish people, but that it was negative for white people. And I thought that was extremely unfair, because it may be true, but if it's true for reasons that are very different than what apply to other groups. It's because to believe as a European person, to have pride in the deeds of your ancestors, is to be, in a sense, at war with the modern world. Not a war that you declare, but a war that is declared on you. Someone said white man's burden. I've never understood that phrase. G. Rubel says, how long does it take for Streamlabs to go through? I'll be reading all Streamlabs. Just give me a minute here. I have to be honest. This knowledge has hurt many aspects of my life. It has separated me from a path that was easy and clear, consistent, individualistic. And knowing what I know, I feel infused with a sense of something greater than myself, something bigger than me, something that makes my own particular life significantly less important. Meaning what happens to my body or to my immediate network or to my safe, secure financial future or something to that extent. All of those things, if I'm being completely honest, are not as tight in my daily routine as they were before this became a part of my life as deep, as meaningful as it is now. I'm just being honest, guys. And what I want to do beginning tonight is to help use these streams as a way of positivity. Maybe this is sort of the heart right in its way. A way of holding myself accountable and being a better man for it. There's a tendency to sort of think so far beyond yourself with the knowledge that we know. that you don't take care of yourself as much anymore. And I felt that. I felt that in myself, and I want to begin tonight to turn the course back around on that, and to hold myself accountable for being a better man, and not just for doing things that I believe are better for the broader network of the world, but for myself as well. Because each of us who are involved in this cause, we are the representatives of it in a way. And to the extent that the world is depending on us to spread the seeds of this knowledge, our own individual selves have to be strong, as well as strong to that extent too. So I'm going to stop this now and turn to the subject at hand. But I want to put that out there. Sorry, guys, that was a little out of character for me, but it is who I am. So better to know that now. All right, so let's get into. First, we're going to start with recent news in the UK, and the Tommy Robinson affair has been covered up and down, but I've been seeing a lot of pushback lately about Tommy Robinson not being a good representative of the cause, because he is a Zionist, and because he sort of knowingly got himself in trouble as a kind of suicide by cop thing as well. He knew that he knew what he was doing. He was deliberately trying to get caught. There was, I think Mark Collette was saying something similar to this on JF's stream. Johnny Gatt just published a video about it. Just in case you haven't seen it, I'm going to play the first minute of it for you guys.
I'm on a suspended sentence, you see, so people need to know what's going on. People need to know these court cases are happening. Obviously, the problem is you have people like that who think I'm a wanker for reporting on it. Now, there is a reporting restriction on this case, so there's already been stage 1 of the trial. And here I am being arrested for saying nothing.
I'm threatened to behead
I've done
me.
nothing.
You've not said anything about.
Okay, so the idea of this is that Tommy knew that he was on a suspended sentence. He knew what he was doing is illegal, and so this is not a miscarriage of justice. This is actually the justice being applied fairly and equally, and that he got what he deserved. The only injustice is maybe that he was that the sentence was too harsh. I think that's wrong. I think that we have to support people on principle as much as we can, and that hopefully people will pay us back the favor in time, and that there's almost nothing good that can come out publicly of our content counter-signaling the Tommy Robinson case. There's almost, I can't think of anybody who will be, even though we know it's true, right? We know that Tommy is how he is about Zionism, that he is financed in large part by sort of right-wing Zionists who are conservatives or Tories and not nationalist for the most part. But Tommy Robinson is nationalist. Now, he is not as woke maybe on racial or ethnic considerations, but I'm not sure if you're on a public show and what you're doing is public facing, I'm not sure that it benefits you. There's a tension between truth and victory sometimes. And while it may be true what has been said, I guess, in the past 24 hours about Tommy from the nationalist camp, I think in this case, winning is a bit more important, and showing solidarity. The more people that are at a Tommy Robinson rally, like there was in the UK recently, the more people who go to those rallies, the more people who are on our side, the more people who are used to getting involved in these kind of nationalist movements, and the more our audience grows. So let me know if you disagree with me in the chat, but if there's a KPI here that I'm focused on, someone just said the free speech rally was a joke. I'm not talking about the free speech rally. I'm talking about the Free Tommy rally. I'm talking about this one that everyone was at, that there were hundreds of people at, allegedly, a few days ago. I'm going to just wait for this to load so I can show you guys some video. But let me know if you guys have seen this. The Tommy Robinson petition got about 500,000 people to sign it. And this is a guy who has a lot of baggage. He's been, convicted of a number of minor crimes. He's, gotten fights in the street. And now you've got mainstream people sticking up for him. He was on the front page of Drudge. And here, I'm just pulling up some of these some of this white pilling footage that I saw. But here's one.
Shame on you! Shame on you! Shame on you! Tommy Robinson! Tommy Robinson! Tommy Robinson!
This is the mobilization of the soccer hooligan crowd. Look at this. There are kids there. Okay, I mean, admittedly, most of them seem to be in their 40s and somewhere between late 30s and early 50s. But that's a lot of people who are out, okay? They're off their butts, they're in the streets, and they're doing something. That, to me, is the first step. So, to me, I guess I'm still on Team Tommy to that extent. Not in a way that's cuckish or whatnot, but I don't see the benefit of counter-signaling it strategically. But let me know if you disagree with me in the chat. I'm open to being, I'm open to persuasion the other way. But I think it just feels good to call out Tommy, because you're right. But here, I just think there's a tension between being right and winning. We don't often get to pick the people who are out there taking the most action. The fact is, he's taken action. Anyway, that's enough of that. One thing that has been talked a lot about this week is Allison Chablos. Allison Chablos was sentenced to jail. I think she got jail time, but she was certainly convicted of. She was found guilty for writing anti-Semitic music. Here's the article from The Independent on it, saying that this woman, she posted music on YouTube about Auschwitz, calling it some offhand reference to it being a theme park rather than a death camp. And she was found guilty of laws against causing gross offense. She's 54 years old, and She sang her songs at a London forum group, and will be sentenced on June 14th. She claims that it was satire, but even so, it being a joke is no defense. There were thugs, Jewish thugs, just to be clear. I mean, look at this guy's face. Yeah, that's the kind of Jewish Defense League JDL style thug who comes to break your orbital bone like they did to David Cole. But here she is being found criminally guilty, and here's some of her songs that I have pulled up. Take a listen. This is she's an acoustic guitar singer. This isn't even like Mr. Bond style Nazi stuff. Look at this.
In my younger days, I must confess, my views were more towards the left, but now such is my infamy. I'm too extreme for the BNP. I'm a toxic brand, a walking taboo, all because I sing for truth.
Wow. I mean, just listen to this. This is not, this this is damn near wholesome. 54-year-old woman in I mean, she looks to me like a Jewish sociology professor. But here she is with love and a smile, saying that she's singing for truth, and here she is going to find herself in jail next month. She's been criminally convicted.
They wanna shut me down, lock me away, remove my right to have my say. Lobbying fault finders spend their days.
Let me just say something about this first. How much more effective would this be if... Now, this is not me being subversive, guys. I'm just throwing ideas out. But I'm thinking about the civil rights movement. And by the way, I got some Streamlabs. I am going to read them. Jerry, thank you for that. But if there was a whole group, like a choir, and when you do this, have a sign on your chest or something, so that when there are pictures taken of you, that all the normies see that as well. But these one-off cases, it would be so much more effective if this all happened like 100 at a time. If there was a whole coalition that all had each other's back, so to speak. I just see these one-off cases of Tommy and this girl, and I think, if they were all together, perhaps they'd be safer. Perhaps it would be more of a news story. But let's see.
Making endless vexatious complaints. For them, the truth is no defense. It's enough to cause them gross offense.
Wow. That's amazing. Listen to that lyric. For them, the truth is no defense. It's enough to cause gross offense. Guys, that's literally what she went to jail for. She literally went to jail for causing gross offense. That's amazing. Directly calling out what she would be sent to jail for, because she has a different opinion on the historical facts of what happened at Auschwitz. Look at this. She was found guilty of causing gross offense.
Gross offense. They'd have us all banned, no reason or rhyme. Burn all our books, patriotism is now a crime. The Labour, Liberals, Tories too, all controlled by the very same few.
Adam Smith says this is somewhere between cringe and wholesome. Look, it's just plain wholesome to me. She called out exactly what she would be thrown in jail for, and she was thrown in jail for it. Where is the energy in the UK? Do I have any UK fans here? Is there anyone in the UK who can tell me is there any energy in the street to repeal these hate speech laws? You see, in America, we still have plausible deniability about it. So there's no real energy for free speech, so to speak, because no one quite knows what to do legally about it. Because legally, there's tension with free speech and with corporate freedom and other things. But there is something you can do in England. You could repeal those laws. Is it just too deeply wrapped up in the diversity industry? Herman Salza says too much energy goes into foosball. I think he's making a joke on football, but yeah, what the bread and circuses. All right. Well, look, I'm going to read this super chat here. It's from Jerry. I'm sorry, this Streamlabs. He says, what advice would you give to a pro-white and American nationalist black male veteran in dealing with probable near-future happenings? It seems like a catch-22, a very bitter black pill. Thank you, Jerry. I do get these messages once in a while from African Americans or from black people abroad who feel the same way that I do. And that to be pro-white, to be heart-right, and to love and appreciate what Europeans have built for the Western world, what advice would I give to an African American? Would be to form a network and of people that you can speak to and develop that. I mean, it's helped me. One of the reasons I've been posting less content on this channel in the past month is because I've just been meeting so many people in real life. I've spent every weekend meeting people. I've been appearing on a ton of other people's streams. I've been on JF's stream about 3 times. We'll be doing a regular Monday series. I've been on streams with Greg Johnson and Comfy Kayla and Luke Ford and a bunch of other places. Vince, the Red Elephants. And that has helped me contextualize the community that we're surrounded by. So I would say try to find community wherever you can. And the other aspect of it is continue to develop yourself and be a person who others in your network look up to, because that will amplify your frame so much more. You think about Kanye, right? And how much Kanye lost potentially by being a black man who said what he said about Trump. And you, Jerry, being a black man saying positive things about white Europeans and being pro-white, you'll get the same treatment. But look, Kanye West didn't die. Kanye West, Jay Wes says, be a winner. That's exactly right. Kanye West is doing just fine. Okay, Kanye West, a lot of people may have predicted that Kanye West would have been absolutely destroyed by coming out doing a freestyle rap with in a MAGA Trump hat. So, did you guys catch this? I mean, he literally threw on a MAGA hat signed by Trump and did a freestyle about it. Let me pull it up. There was a lot of people came out and supported him. He is alive and he is doing well. And you know why? It's because he had already built up his power base. He had already, by the time the mob came for him, he was already very strong. And he had a number of people in his network who would not turn away from him no matter what, including his superstar wife, Kim Kardashian, a lot of his network distribution deals. So what I would advise, Jerry, is while you're developing your philosophical set of values, continue to grow your personal brand, continue to grow your financial strength, continue to grow, surround yourself with a gang of people who will have your back so that when the mob comes for you, there's a mob behind you as well. Right? Like, if Candace Owens didn't have Charlie Kirk behind her, if she didn't have Trump behind her, if she didn't have Kanye West behind her, she may have been taken down. But the fact is, Candace Owens is now stronger than ever. So I would seek allies. No movement. And listen, a lot of people call me subversive because I'm Jewish and I advocate this. But my big sort of like master sheet for notes that I take during the day on this is called Big Tent White Identity Politics. It's about having allies. It's about making friends. It's about having people in your coalition and thinking about how you can help others, which is one of the reasons I started tonight's stream with a shitty sermon about trying to make your own life better. And I wanted to end it with one as well, which is to say that I want everyone listening to pick one thing and say it out loud that you're going to do to make your life a little bit better tomorrow. For me, I used to be a competitive runner, and I've decided I'm going to start running and picking up trash in my neighborhood in the mornings. Just one thing I'm going to do. I'm going to try it for a week and see how I feel. It's a stupid little thing. I live in Brooklyn, and it's not exactly very clean in Brooklyn. I'm sure it won't make a dent. But expanding your sense of community and being a community asset is the best thing you can do, because not only does that make more people stand behind you, it makes it more costly for people to abandon you should you ever get in trouble. And that may be more important. The second may be more important than the first. So look at this. All right, I'm actually going to pull up this this freestyle because I'm curious to hear it again. But I hope that answered the question, Jerry. And by the way, specify what you mean about happenings. I'm not really familiar with the happenings meme. I've seen it mentioned in like Murdoch and other places, but I'm not sure what is the happenings meme, guys. What is that? Let me check back in with the chat here. All right, while I'm pulling up the Kanye MAGA hat freestyle. All right, here you go. Here's Kanye's full MAGA hat freestyle.
Hopped off the I'm a star and made I'm a god. It's always a lituation when I'm involved. It's always a lituation when I'm involved. See, I say what they say when the mic is off. Parents are the strippers, strip kids of their confidence. Teach white dominance, question your common sense.
Holy shit. I forgot how base this was. He's calling out black culture for preaching white dominance. You guys catch that lyric?
Teach white dominance.
Listen, say what you say about him just being kind of like a Charlie Kirk, Candace Owens, whatever. But this is, I don't know, this is an interesting lyric. It's actually somebody not just saying I support Trump, but that teaching white dominance is wrong. That's interesting.
Parents are the strippers, strip kids of their confidence. Teach white dominance, question your common sense. See, I've been washed in tradition and I'm a rinse. Hopped off the I'm a star and made I'm a god. It's always a lituation when I'm involved. See, I say what they say when the mic is off. Yo, Harvey, that's enough.
Kill kids' confidence, teach white dominance. Ooh. Interesting. All right, I know you guys in the chat are like dying listening to this. All right, listen. Sorry, guys. I did listen to. I still enjoy a fair amount of hip hop music, so that's just who I am. You guys can call that what you want, and I respect it. because most of it is garbage lyrically. But I just thought that was interesting, so I hope that was learning a little something. So we're going to get into the main topic of tonight, but I just want to check back in with the chat for a minute. Let me know what you meant by happenings. I mean, are you talking about like revolutions? Are you talking about something else? Because I'm not quite sure what you're afraid of, Jerry. I mean, if that's, I don't see a lot of energy for like revolutions in the streets kind of thing. And anyway, to me, my fear is that people will be not galvanized enough rather than the other way around. So, all right, one more point of order before we move on to the main topic, which is going through my media news versus media thread, is that it is June, so the White Mother Fertility Fund is kicking back into gear for another winner. We have 2 submissions so far this month, but let me know on Twitter, respond to my thread, or just let me know in the chat if you have a particular candidate you want to submit for the White Mother Fertility Fund, and you guys will get to vote on that on Twitter like last month. And then beginning in July, we're going to be transitioning most likely to the Bravery Fund, rewarding people for acts of bravery and for speech that they get demonetized for or fired for or kicked off social media for or something. So please remember to let me know your submissions, and 20% of everything that I have on Patreon will be sent to that person, usually through a sort of GoFundMe or a free starter, or if they have a PayPal. I will make sure that gets through, and I will send you guys a receipt so you know I'm not Miloing you guys or something. I don't even know if Milo's guilty of that, but people keep saying that he is, so I'm using the word alleged. But let me know your candidates, guys. It's important to help people, and it makes me feel good to feel like I am doing my small part. All right, so with that in mind, I'm going to play a little bit more Alison Chepelos in the background.
Drink champagne.
And we're going to talk, actually, we're just going to get right to it. Actually, one last detour is like, this week has been full of these like anti-white hit pieces where it's actually Jewish people who are guilty of it. Like, like look at this outrageous Forbes article. And I'm gonna quit with the point and sputter thing. I'm just gonna touch and go on this topic. But here, this Forbes article says, it tries to say that the new Star Wars movie is a flop because of white men and leading roles. Meanwhile, the lead character, this is the first time that a Star Wars movie has had a Jewish protagonist. This is the lead actor here, Aaron something or other. I forget his name. I could pull it up, but he's Jewish. This is actually a Jewish guy. Okay. I will pull it up for you guys because source material, right? Star Wars, Jewish. All right. It's just very. Oh, sorry. Let me pull that up. Jewish. By the way, I did a video about Disney and Star Wars. This is Aaron Rannon, Aaron Isaac. Okay, well, I'll pull it up anyway. I did a video a long time ago on Star Wars and Bob Iger and Disney, which I will link to in the description. I encourage you guys to check it all out because since this is since this is in the news now, I think it's relevant. This was it's called Star Wars and the Culture Wars, and I think here you go. I'll post the link here. You guys can check it out. There you go. My voice is going to sound a little different on it, but anyway, it's... And then you had this just totally unforgivable moment with from CNN where you have Brian Stelter there's this war right now between Donald Trump and Bob Iger. It's over the Roseanne thing. You know, Bob Iger is the head of Disney. Disney owns ABC. They own ESPN. They own Star Wars. Disney is probably the worst company in the world, in my opinion. They're definitely one of the top 3 or 5. I'm going to do an independent stream or independent video on just Star Wars alone. But you had this amazing sound clip from Brian Stelter.
Entertainment. Most media companies run frankly, by white men like Bob Iger. Entertainment. Most media companies run frankly, by white men like Bob Iger. Entertainment. Most media companies run frankly, by white men like Bob Iger.
Well, there it is. I mean, right? Bob Iger is not just Jewish, but intensely Jewish, and but you're not allowed to name it. You're not allowed to say it. You're only allowed to have negative, collective racial guilt for white, but not for Jewish, of course. You knew that before. You knew that before the stream started, but you know it's totally pervasive. Anything good that Jewish people do is chalked up to Jewish people. Anything bad that Jewish people do is chalked up to the sort of white people scorecard. So, you know, and this is something that you guys all know. I don't want to dwell on that too much because we're going to talk about something a little bit different tonight. So how is the energy in the chat? I'm going to make sure to make it more positive next time. But let me know before we start in with the main topic. How you guys feeling? And smash that like button. Show some love. Let me know. Let me know if you guys are you hot and cold. Hot or cold? You guys good or bad? And by the way, if you answered that the red pill has been bad for you, either personally or financially or socially, try to pick one thing right now that you can do, that you can test at least, so that next week this time, so that tomorrow this time, whether or not your life is a little better. I'm going to be accountable to you guys. If I do a stream, the next stream that I do, which hopefully will be tomorrow, I'll do a short one. But I will report to you and have told you that I will have done that run picking up trash in my neighborhood. So I hope that you can say one thing out loud and hold yourself accountable to that. And even post it in the chat in my next stream so I know that you guys are made better. All right, enough of that. Let's move into the material. All right. So this is a stream this is a thread that I did last August that I want to go through in detail now. Someone asked me to make videos out of my threads on a recent thread that I did so that they'd be archived for posterity, and I'm doing that now. This thread is called News versus Leads, and it's a model for understanding the media that's been very useful to me. I don't think of the media as news, but as leads. Because the word news conveys a kind of legitimacy to it. It conveys that the information is authentically reported, and that what you are receiving is, in fact, new, true information. Whereas leads retains a subtle frame that this is unverified, that there is information here that you are getting from, say, CNN.
Most media companies run frankly, by white men like Bob Iger.
That's not news. You don't grant them the authenticity of news. You don't grant them the authority of news. They're just a rumor mill, a lead. And the more you start conditioning yourself to refer to them as leads, the more you will meme this into reality in your own mind. All right. Point number 2 is, I guess following on the same, do not concede that they're actually reporting a news event. And again, don't just do this publicly. Do this privately, and when you find yourself saying the word news, correct yourself. The more you correct yourself, the more you will subtly condition yourself and into course correcting to the point where it'll become like second skin. It will be like training your instincts. You know, like in every martial arts movie, they always talk about training your instincts. Well, the more you train your instincts, the less you need to think in the moment. The more you can scale and build on top of yourself. This is how growth happens. Not so much through esoterica and studying, but by training your instincts. So that instinct after instinct is consistently better and better. This allows you to be speedy and quick on your feet, which is absolutely critical when you're talking about debate or interpersonal persuasion. So correct yourself. Whenever you say news, pinch yourself or correct yourself and say leads. Do this not just publicly, but privately at home. Condition yourself. Now, one of the beautiful things about this is not only will this change the way you talk, but it will change the way you think. Some thought occurs through the conscious, but some of it is through the subconscious. And either way, the more your mental construction of something is built, the farther out you go, the deeper you can see. Many people are unable to think critically about the topics that we cover in this movement because they've not conditioned their mind to frame by frame build longer limbs, right? Like when you replace the word news with leads, now whole new branches are constructed. You'll see things in a new way because you'll be able to build this kind of taller tree of knowledge on top of the word leads rather than news. So I encourage doing that with everything, but this is one example of it. So the mainstream media's perspective on their power in this is because they are the authoritative record, right? Like there's this battle for authority. Sorry, I just lost the thread, so I'm pulling it back up here. I believe this is what I had it under. Yeah. So being indignant, irreverent, and not acknowledging their authority is absolutely critical. If you think about how radical leftists took power in the 1960s and long before that, it was because of irreverence and not acknowledging the authoritative position of the dominant culture. So that's another reason why you should replace the word news with the word leads. And this gets to who writes history. So I was listening. Someone sent me a George Lincoln Rockwell speech that I was listening to last night, and I'm not making a position for or against, but I thought this was an incredibly instructive speech that I listened to. I'm going to put it in the chat here, but this speech was from 1966, and I'm going to put it in the chat. For those who don't know, George Lincoln Rockwell was the predecessor to William Luther Pierce's National Alliance. He was sort of the initial white identitarian coming out of World War II. He has a very interesting history of being a commander in World War II, and then going on to found the American Nazi Party, and then sort of having a dispute with William Luther Pierce. William Luther Pierce said you shouldn't adopt all these sort of Nazi paraphernalia, and George Lincoln Rockwell said, well, that's the only way to get attention. There's a lot of questions about whether or not he actually believed a lot of what he said, or whether or not that was basically to get media attention so that he could convert it into more sort of pure white identity politics. I'm not 88. I don't agree with calling something, like Nazism. I believe in white identity politics and white positivity, and that is the extent where I'm playing this, and where I think so much of this is instructive. And this is a 1966 speech that I'm going to play here, a clip from. And it's in the context of fake news. Remember, this is 1966. Listen to this sound clip.
Now let me start off my regular presentation by saying this to you, ladies and gentlemen. To the best of my knowledge, you've had at least 3 communists speak here at Brown University and at Pembroke. In fact, one of them, I think Mr. Jackson, had tea with the girls here at Pembroke. I wonder... He did. I think it was 2 years ago. He not only spoke, but they had a tea for him. I wonder how many of the Jews who have been raising the devil about me speaking here raised any fuss
sorry about
at
that.
all
He has this
about
line
the
about
communists
suppress
not only
news and
speaking, but
maintain
having tea
news.
with our
That's
Pembroke
what I'm
girls.
really bringing this up
I have
about.
never heard of any Jew fussing about any communist coming to speak. The only time they fuss is when an anti-communist comes to speak. Now, I'll present that for your own judgment. You look back and see if you remember any fuss, any $700 worth of policemen necessary to protect any communist speaker. I haven't heard of it. Now, the reason for it, ladies and gentlemen, is because the Jews do not want certain facts to come to your attention. I maintain you are not only the victims of what they call managed news, you're the victims of suppressed news.
Now, that was amazing when I heard that line. This is before fake news, right? This is 50 years before the fake news debate. 50 years before it. Listen to that line again.
Of what they call managed news, you're the victim to protect any communist speaker. I haven't heard of it. Now, the reason for it, ladies and gentlemen, is because the Jews do not want certain facts to come to your attention. I maintain you are not only the victims of what they call managed news, you're the victims of suppressed news.
Holy shit. Managed news, suppressed news. This is 50 years before fake news. That's amazing. Now, what's really amazing if you listen to this speech is that when you hear about the 1960s and you hear about like white dominance of and you know how things were up until very recently, I'm going to put this speech in the chat just so you guys can see it. And he has a couple other college speeches that I encourage you to listen to just so you understand with the dynamics of the 1950s and 60s. And you know, like I said, I'm not 88. I'm not I'm for being sort of I resent this guilt by association shit, though. So that's why I think it's very important that you don't just like suppress things like this. Okay, this war on association and calling somebody toxic because of what what symbols they use. I don't play that game, and I think it's completely intellectually disingenuous. So anyway, I encourage you guys to listen to it just so you understand the dynamics of the 1950s and 60s. Rockwell was later murdered, I think, a year after this speech. He was gunned down not too far away from when Martin Luther King was gunned down. But he was basically like a white Malcolm X. He had a lot of very nice things to say about Malcolm X, too. Anyway, but I play that clip about managed news because it gets us to news versus leads. So this is why this need for authoritative control over authenticity is why the mainstream media deployed the frame fake news in November of 2016 to reestablish its monopoly. Remember, this was at the time, this was before everybody got kicked off Twitter, before everyone got kicked off YouTube, before everyone got kicked off Facebook. At the time, remember, we still believed that there was free speech on these kinds of platforms. In November 2016. The reason that the movement has faltered, in my opinion, is because we've just been completely censored, and so all of the snowball of momentum that was built up has been destroyed, really through communist censorship. But here's what they, I show some quotes here from different articles. Facebook's failure. Did fake news get Trump elected? This is from the New York Times. The fake news we saw on Election Day. This is on Election Day. This was literally on Election Day, blaming the election. They didn't even wait until the bodies were cold. But this is a journalist style thing that they did. I'm going to do a separate stream on the journalist. Actually, I may do that on my stream with JF next Monday. For those who don't know about the two journalist scandals involving Ezra Klein, they are incredibly instructive for understanding the media, and I'm going to be doing an expose on that. But what happened when Trump appropriated the frame of fake news? I thought that was our biggest win in 2017. When that happened, there was another concerted media effort saying Trump is trying to redefine fake news. We can't let him. And then once they couldn't reappropriate the term fake news, this headline, it's from the Washington Post, it's time to retire the tainted term fake news. Here, let me pull that up a little bit more so that you guys can see it. I think it's a little too high on the page. But here you go. It's time to retire it. Remove the word from the English lexicon. And this is a very important concept. This is something obviously Orwell wrote about. But this is what they've done. If you wonder why it is that we're in the position we're in, it's because this is how the frame game works. If you can't build a frame or co-opt someone else's, the best thing you can do is memory hole it, to remove the ability for somebody to use that frame. Because not only does that prevent their speech, but it prevents their thought, because they can't build theoretical academic foundations or mental mosaics on top of that concept, because the concept itself gives you pain to think about, because you know that you'll be outcast from society for thinking about that phrase or that concept. So then there's this clip here that I just put in as an example of authenticity being a key lever in left-wing power structures.
I know you're not suggesting that I'm using misleading information, right? You let me know what I'm saying that's inaccurate. Because this whole fake thing needs to end, and it needs to end right now.
This whole fake thing needs to end, and it needs to end right now.
Because this whole fake thing needs to end, and it needs to end right now.
So I go on here to write that it's a classic Overton war strategy, which is fought not over the truth, but who gets the right to determine the truth. And then here, and I'll post this, by the way, this whole thread in the chat so you guys can see it. But I showed the example there of the frame of fake American, and someone on I think it was 4chan, or I'm sorry, on Reddit, writing about what happened when they deployed this frame of fake American on liberals and how freaked out they got. So, Yuri Bezmenov, who many of you are familiar with, former Russian KGB guy who did a lot of YouTube talks about tactics of subversion that the KGB would use, posited that there were 4 stages of subversion. He called them demoralization, destabilization, crisis, and normalization. And then here's a relevant clip.
When the legitimate bodies of power, the social structure collapse, it cannot function anymore. So instead, we have artificial's body injected into society, such as non-elected committees. You remember I was talking about them here. Social workers who are not elected by people, media who are self-appointed rulers of your opinion, some strange groups which claim that they know how to lead society forward. They don't usually. All they care is how to collect donations and sell their own concocted ideology, mixture of religion and ideology. Here, we have all this artificial's body claiming power. If the power is denied to them, they take it by force. The next stage is normalization. At that stage, the self-appointed rulers of the society don't need any revolution anymore. They don't need any radicalism anymore. So this is the reverse from destabilization. Basically, it is stabilizing the country by force. The new rulers need stability to exploit the nation, to exploit the country, to take advantages of the victory. Okay? So no more revolutionaries, please. So to reverse this process, from here, it takes only and always military force. No other force on earth can reverse this process at this point. At this point, it does not take military invasion. Demoralization process Again, it's the easiest thing to reverse. First of all, by restricting import of propaganda. The easiest thing to do.
Okay, so this normalization process, a lot of people who are conservatives, I've seen them get their asses whooped because they don't understand that everything that has happened to date in the past year and a half, the whole goal of hashtag the resistance, is non-normalization, okay? It's recognizing that the Trump movement, the MAGA, at least partially nationalist movement, was one that was won by the far right wing, or at least what they frame as the far right wing. And so they've tried to resist normalization, which has led to absolutely everything. The censorship, the name calling, the it's okay to punch a Nazi, the no platforming, the demonetizing, all of that stuff is part of the same collective strategic goal of not normalizing the Trump movement. So here I'd show a bundle of articles, but you can easily do it with your own on a Google search. And no word has been used more frequently than normalize. Challenge the legitimacy. Do not allow that foot in the door that comes when the Overton window shifts. And this is examples like where Jimmy Fallon simply ruffled Trump's hair. That was normalizing, right? The chief strategic goal is non-normalization. If you can prevent that, then you can prevent all of the other things 10 times easier. Okay, think of it like a beachhead, like storming Normandy. The way people think about this, and I'm going to show you now actually, if you haven't already seen it, and I'll do a separate video on this, but the Media Matters, this is the Share Blue David Brock memo on fighting Trump. It's probably the most important memo you'll ever read about politics, and I was telling people about this back in like 2016 or whatever. Like the moment it came out, I think it deserves its own video, but I'm going to post the link to it in case you haven't seen it. But here he lays out the media strategy for taking down Trump, and it has been followed to an absolute T by the collective mainstream leads outlet. And here you go. I'm going to post a link to it. Let me know in the chat if you guys have read this, by the way. I honestly think it's the most important thing that you can read this week. It explains Russia. It explains the whole anti-normalization campaign. And it's amazing to read it in retrospect now, because this was like a year and a half ago that it was published. And it was basically the Media Matters, Share Blue, David Brock media strategy campaign for how to take down the Trump movement. So I encourage you to check that out. I may actually talk about that on Monday with JF on my sort of guest show on his stream. But let's move on. So here's some other examples, right? Hashtag stay outraged. Remember, these are the people who set up hate speech laws and tell you that hate is wrong. They're the ones who say stay outraged. Actually, George Lincoln Rockwell had some amazing quotes on that that are worth checking out about hate and love. I advocate the message of radical love, but it is worth noting how strategically strengthening tactical outrage can be, and the left knows this all too well, which is why Don't Normalize Trump has a hashtag of stay outraged. Never normalize Trump t-shirts, non-normalize everything. The Normandy, the beachhead battle is over normalization. So Bezmenov describes how losers at the crisis stage, that is, the crisis stage was the battle between Hillary and Trump. Losers at the crisis stage can only stop militarization through military or authoritarian means. Look around. So they literally, remember, have you ever seen a right-wing group do this? Like, ever in your life? This was right after the election. Become ungovernable, and this is war. This is war. And here is an Antifa. Here's an Antifa pamphlet saying, learn how to identify racists. White supremacy may be disguised as all of these things, right? Patriotism, color blindness, fetishizing of European identity. And then look at this. Don't let them tell you it's normal. Right? The worst thing that can happen to them is it becoming normal. Because once it's normal, a whole cascade of other thoughts become normal as well. Of other words and frames become normal as well. It opens the door to things that need to be remain closed for essentially these communists and racial communists to remain in power. That's why normalization is so critical. It's because it is the beachhead. Once that beach is stormed, everything that follows falls as well too, right? You know, you had Richard Spencer being punched and that being normal as well. So you have to understand is that the rules of anti-normalization campaigns are very different than the rules of a free society. In an anti-normalization context, censorship is free speech because free speech would undermine the communist hold on power. And so in order to protect the sort of the freedoms of the sort of neoliberal communist status quo, in order to protect what they consider the freedoms there, you need to remove other freedoms. So this is how the famous Orwellian phrases like freedom is slavery, war is peace, free speech is hate speech become normal. If you get rid of the anti-normalization campaign and you just had a free society that could debate ideas, then you could no longer disqualify people simply because their ideas are considered to be racist or anti-Semitic. You would have to debate whether or not they are, or what those words mean, or whether or not aspects of them are true, and then they would instantly lose. So this is how you get these flip-flops. This is a picture of Berkeley holding up free speech signs. Free speech massively helped SJWs rise to institutional dominance by ensuring them a platform, even though they were an extremist fringe. But now that they are the status quo and high-powered orthodoxy, they are the ruling class. Now that that's the case, free speech hurts them. So it's very interesting that George Lincoln Rockwell was able to, the head of the American Nazi Party, was able to do this college tour that now even Richard Spencer can't do, even though he's not even a tenth of what Rockwell was in terms of extreme content, is because they needed this free speech concept as a beachhead for their own uses. This is one of the reasons that California is the best place to bring employee lawsuits for free speech, because California is a very peculiar statute that protects employees from being fired for their political views, which is something that conservatives now use as the basis for protections. Like, I think this is being used in like the James Damore case and a few others, where conservatives get fired for their political views. California has this really unique law, which is that it's illegal to fire someone for their political view. Now, a lot of people are very surprised by that because they say, well, why would California, the most progressive left-wing anti-right-wing state in the union, why would they have these laws that so transparently protect the right wing? And the answer is because they were set up back during the 50s and 60s and 70s when they were set up to protect communists. It was because there was a big movement back then to root out communism and to no-platform communists and to blackball communists from industries. And so these laws were put in place to protect communists from getting fired for their political views. And now they're being used by American nationalists to try to protect them. Same thing happened with free speech and the hate speech debate, quote, quote, hate speech. Okay, so I go on. But in an anti-normalization context, free speech is disastrous to them Because win or lose, the debate, the mere act of debate, normalizes. This is where you get these New York Times, right, which tries to position itself as the paper of record, saying that the ACLU needs to rethink free speech. I mean, just pure racial communist propaganda. And of course, they tie the whole thing to whiteness. When free speech becomes a weapon, a political weapon, by the Washington Post, maybe liberals shouldn't be free speech absolutists after all. Yeah. And then this image from Berkeley, 1964 versus 2016. Very telling and powerful images. I'm going to check back in with the chat now, see how you guys are doing. By the way, this channel will likely never get Super Chat, because even though I've got like 1 million minutes watched and, you know, like 8,500 subs right now, they're still, you know, they're never going to approve my channel for monetization, even though I applied like 5 months ago. So if you do have a question that you want to make sure that I get to or read out loud or answer, you can send it to me via Streamlabs. Otherwise, I'll try to get to questions in the chat, but can't promise an answer because there's a lot going on in the chat. Anyway, let me just check back in and see how we are doing. How are we doing in the chat? Herman Salza says, what the fuck? I love communists now. Yeah, it's really funny, right? But this is one of the ways that you can kind of use a bit of jujitsu to use the weapons of your political enemies against themselves. So it'll be very interesting to see how the legal precedent comes down on these things with James Damore and others. I know that he lost like the EEOC suit, but I think the main suit is still in the courts. All right. Let's just keep on moving. All right. So normalization of Trumpism, not even dominance, right? This is the thing. It's not about preventing them from becoming dominant. It's about preventing them from becoming normal. Is so disastrous for them that paramilitary violence gets involved. It's funny looking back at this thread that I did a year ago, because now we're so used to it, right? And here we have these CNN saying that Antifa wants peace through violence. CNN leads mill, the rumor mill. CNN, Antifa is short for anti-fascist. Their main goal is disrupting neo-Nazis and white supremacists, seeking peace through violence. I mean, this is literally an Orwell quote. Peace is violence. Sorry, liberals. And here's a HuffPo, article. Sorry, liberals. A violent response to Trump is as logical as any, right? All about preventing normalization. Please read that Media Matters memo that I sent. So then I go on to say, talk about the Overton window, which many of you are familiar with. Boy, it's amazing what a different world we live in now, reading this now. But the Overton window is the window of discourse, but it's also the window of thought. Oftentimes you will short-circuit yourself from thinking about ideas simply because those ideas are wrong-think. And so because you know that they're bad ideas, you will hold yourself back. And you will not be able to build on top of them and develop an intellectual foundation. This is why it's very important that you do these things privately, that you use the right frames privately, and you don't just try to perform in the moment. You have to truly become who you are. This will free your mind. So it is the window of permitted discourse, but also the window of permitted thought. The Overton window is. So here I go through the history of the matter, which many of you are familiar with, but really began in 1923. There were efforts before that, but what we now know as, SJW, critical theory and SJW theory really began in America in 1923, when the Frankfurt School set up its camp and in LA and in New York. And then 40 years later, which is really how long it takes to walk through the long march through the institutions. And there I talked about another quote of mine here, that what the Frankfurt School did is they reformed Marxism with the Frankfurt School and tied Marxism's class warfare to blood, thus the racial oppressor-oppression paradigm. This is how you get things like, how do you attack the norm of civility? Well, you say that it is white informed, right? Are you guys familiar with white informed civility? This is the new intersectional catchphrase, which is a way of trying to strategically justify using violence and disruption as opposed to the Anglo-Germanic norm of peace and debate, by saying that civility is itself racist and patriarchal, that collegial debate is racist and patriarchal, and that civility is a whiteness-informed concept, right? It's a way of creating a moral imperative for being uncivil. So that doesn't work if all you have is class. So this is one of the ways that you have meritocracy being racist as well. I'll pull up some quotes on that so that you guys can see it with your own eyes. But here is a checklist to determine if you are supporting white supremacy. And in this checklist, if you are supporting a logic of meritocracy, then that is considered to be racist. And because racist is the worst thing in the world, that is what the religion is all about, then when you tie it to blood, they found that was so much stronger than communism or Marxism, because it's Marxism on steroids, because it appeals to something deep and primal in you, something very natural and organic, something a part of the lived experience of being a real biological being. So this was a very critical moment, tying Marxism to blood. And then I go on to talk about the diversity industry in another one of my threads there. And demographics. And I'm going to play this clip for you guys so that you see it. This is an instructive clip. It was from a Vice documentary on Israel. So check this out.
To move here.
3 million, 4 million maybe altogether. It could change the geopolitics.
What do you mean that it could change?
And he's talking about trying to get 3 to 4 million Jews to move to Israel to change their geopolitics and increase Jewish strength in the region.
To move here.
3 million, 4 million maybe altogether. It could change the geopolitics.
What do you mean that it could change the geopolitics?
It's the demography is the key of everything, as you know. Between the Jordan and the Mediterranean, this is the borders, 10 million people, about 500,000 Jews and 500,000 Arabs. And if we want to remain a democratic state, we have to have a majority of Jews in this place.
So you think that immigrants could turn the balance?
Absolutely, sure. Already we have the birth rate among Arabs is decreasing and the birth rate among Jews is increasing. So it's already a change. The train of history is on its...
The train of history is on its way, he says, because now the Jewish majority in Israel is safer. So, look, it's racial ideology is what it is. Most of you already know this, but I write here that the root of the diversity industry political power is a rock-solid ethnic voting alliance among non-whites and a split among whites. So this is one of the reasons that our Constitution is not protected under conservatism. Right here is for those who are not familiar with this image, it's one of the most powerful images, I think, for red-pilling normies, because all it does is just show these voting patterns. And if you take a look at what it looks like for just purely on ethnic grounds, pretty incredible stuff. Here it is shown another way. So that is the funny thing about representative democracy in a multicultural society. identity politics are nuclear weapons. They work. They mobilize. Right? And so here, just some graphics showing the U.S. white population and the normalization of anti-white. And this is why I also think that it's very imperative for people in this movement to fight the war at the normalization. Use the word normalize. Call people out. Call out culture. Call people out for normalizing anti-white incitement, for normalizing anti-white, the promotion of white genocide, or for normalizing, the attacks on whiteness. And then, a lot of, you guys have all seen a lot of this stuff. So an example of normalization, this is the concept that I call the Overton shock push, which is to do things that are so shocking that if you don't fight back against them, then they normalize things. This is the reason that Daily Stormer was kicked off the internet after Trump was elected, after, in the post-Charleston Overton push that was done by mainstream media, by the internet infrastructure protectors like Cloudflare and GoDaddy, by Twitter and Facebook and YouTube. It was a push that if they get away with it, then the Overton window shifts. So here is an example of the normalization of white genocide.
According to the U.S. Census Bureau, white people will go from being the majority to a minority group in the next 25 years.
By the way, I'm going to do critical commentary on this because I consider it to be blackpilling to let it play in full. So I'm going to do the same thing that my fellow Jewish people like to do to texts that are critical of communism or critical of POC identitarian politics or critical of Jewish identity politics.
Yeah, and to make this transition a little less traumatic, we've put together this helpful educational guide.
Look at this shit-eating grin. A shit-eating grin for a shit-eating guy. So, here is this gloating football spiking, so you're about to become a minority, a helpful guide for the white American in transition. Now, what I'm going to comment on here, actually, as something of an amateur artist, I like to sort of think of what I do as in that light, and I think that everybody should, is I pay very close attention to aesthetics. So, of course, you'll see this whole thing in black and white 1950s aesthetics. But this is a nice touch of putting this against this kind of scrolling, grainy background. It's one of the reasons that Murdoch is so fucking effective is because they pay so much attention to aesthetics. And what that does is that allows you to embed messages while you are, while your hindbrain is sort of captivated by the glitz, the message slips into the limbic system.
White people, they used to be everywhere.
White people, they used to be everywhere. Already, right off the bat, you have this framing of inevitability, which is part of this sort of blackpilling process, right? Trying to get you to think of it as normal that white people are not everywhere.
In our homes, at our jobs, and on our juries. For years, white people were the majority in this country. And when you're the majority, America feels like one long sing-along around the campfire.
So here you go with this is part of the war on symbols, right? The war on words and symbols. So imagine how much different this whole video would be if they had had a picture of an actual campfire here rather than the KKK, right? If they had used a picture of an actual campfire, then people would have thought, oh, you know what, actually? A European world is beautiful. It is cozy. The white majority that built up the Western world is actually low crime. It's actually quite comfy. It's actually very tolerant of other groups, within reason. But what they have to do is they have to use this simplistic, primal messaging that always appeals to the worst kinds of demonized symbols. This is something that kind of atrocity propaganda does time and time again. It's a way of trying to beat you down. What does the normie see when they see this image? Instantly, if they're a white person, they feel the need to apologize. They feel the need to retreat. They feel the need to disassociate. And it sets in motion this reciprocity principle of wanting to give back to atone for something they previously did. This is one of the reasons that victimhood voltage is such an asset. That's why I say it again and a fucking again and a fucking again. If you do not have victimhood voltage, then you cannot make any claim of moral imperative to having more than you already have. And you cannot use tactics like this of showing symbols that cause that dissonant state in normies that get them to feel sympathetic to your message. The moral imperative. Remember that phrase.
But those days are about to come to an end.
Of course, look at the cartoonish face on the guy, right? So, propaganda that is totally and completely one-sided. If you do not fight back against this, if you let it slide, if you have tolerance for this, then you will be destroyed. This is what the communists get right. Accepting this as normal, like the National Review or other idiots do, automatically loses. That is them breaching your Normandy. It's already over by that point. That's why the battle is here, over preventing this kind of thing from becoming normal.
That's right. It won't be long before white people
And look how much it drips. Whites a minority by 2044. Artisanal mayonnaise revenue continues to plummet, likening white people to mayonnaise. If you accept this frame, if you allow this frame to get set, to seed this frame, then you are fucking done already. Okay? Which is why these people have to be destroyed economically. That is why you have to fight these people the same way they fight you. That is through the same kind of demonetization, the same kind of no holds bars tactics that communists use against simple day-to-day white people or conservatives or people like the pro-white nationalist Jerry who wrote in to me on that Streamlabs earlier. A lot of people are not white who support this, like me, like tons of Hispanic people, like Jerry, the black guy. But if this is normal, you've already lost, right? If you allow your genocide to be considered a normal and laughable thing, then you will find yourself without any words to express yourself with power. You'll find that all words, you'll find the word anti-white to have no power, even though the word anti-Semitic is powerful enough to make you lose your job. You'll find anti-Gentile to be impotent, even though the word like racist is enough to make you not be able to provide for your family. So, remember normalization. Remember where your Normandy is, okay? Remember the overarching strategic goal. So David Clark writes here in a Streamlabs, and he sent this about 15 minutes ago. I'm getting to it just now. David Clark writes, please post books, resources for debate skills and tactics, or maybe just recommended reading of books you think are important. So last time I posted the Hasbro guide. I'll post that in the chat right now for you guys. But then I'll also do a short list. I'll do a short list right here. So here you go. Here is just a 2002 one that's very instructive. It gets into the concept of debating in good faith versus scoreboards. Determine whether or not you're in a debate or a dunk contest. I think it's a very useful way to look at things. Appealing to the crowd versus appealing to the other person. It talks about the dynamics of that there. Now let me show you some other ones, okay? How many of you guys are familiar with Robert Cialdini and his book Influence? By the way, I'm going to be starting a Amazon referral store over the weekend that I'm going to that I will set up for these kinds of things in the future. But here is a link, David, to Influence by Robert Cialdini. And I'm posting it right here. Here's Influence by Robert Cialdini. He gets into 6 or 7 of the most important framing techniques that are very useful, like appealing to authority, appealing to scarcity, appealing to reciprocity, appealing to like precedent and consistency. There's a lot of really great stuff there. He has another book called Persuasion, which I'm going to post a link to now. I would also love to find sellers of these things that aren't Amazon, because Amazon has been banning books lately, books on the Holocaust, books on Jewish identity politics. They've been under a lot of pressure by the ACLU and other Jewish organizations to burn books, and they have. They've now officially gone on this book burning rampage, where I think like 2 or 3 dozen books have been banned. I can pull up exact sources for that, but I think it would derail from the presentation I'm doing here. But David, so there's 3 things to read right now. I'll keep sending you more and more links on this. A lot of it comes from like law school and negotiation handbooks that I had to read for negotiation class from my debating experience. I was a debater in law school. I'm one outstanding brief writer and made it to nationals, and so me and my partner were sort of king of the school in debate. But so a lot of it came from that kind of academic readings on that I'm not sure I'd be able to find online again, but I probably could if I put the effort into it. So since you sent that Streamlabs, I'll be sure to post more and more of these. Thanks for reminding me. But check out those 3 things to start with, and if you've already read those, I'll send you some more, David. Okay, so we'll get back to this video.
That's right. It won't be long before white people in America will be just another minority. Going from majority to minority in America can be painful. Just ask the American Indian.
Now look at this too. Note how when they show American Indians, they have to show it in the context of white people shooting American Indians to create victimhood voltage for non-white minorities, to show that you genocided us. So now we have a moral imperative to genocide you. Do you understand now why it's so fucking important that you get in the game with respect to victimhood and stop being so fucking proud? Stop thinking of it like victimhood. Think of it like voltage. Okay? Think of it like power levels. This is how you increase power levels. This is how you establish the moral imperative.
Luckily, America is very clear on how minorities should be treated. Here are some helpful guidelines to get you started.
Now notice, all of this, every single one, can someone name one single redeeming or humanizing or normalizing fact about white people in this clip? You've seen KKK, you've seen shooting Indians, you've seen arresting black people. It is completely dehumanizing and non-normalizing. You cannot debate these people. And that is, you should debate them publicly to humiliate them publicly. But the main goal is to prevent this from becoming normal by demonizing this and saying that normal society has a moral imperative to destroy this propaganda. Remove and call for crazy things. This is my opinion, okay? Call for these people to lose their domain name. Just like altright.com did. Seed it. Plant the seed. Plant the frame. That they might lose their .com over it. And then settle for something less. It's also very important that you have a victory parade, even over very small things. Whenever you make a demand like this, make sure there's something that you can point to your audience that shows that you won. Okay? Even if they do nothing, find one thing that they lost at, like maybe their subscribership went down a little bit, Maybe they lost a little bit of revenue. Maybe they have some infighting. You need a victory parade with every single campaign you do. Okay? Every single one of it. So if you go after Huffington Post for something like this, you need to have a victory parade later about something that Huffington Post lost at. One thing, even if it's totally tangential, even if it's totally irrelevant or it's a small little thing. Some little dude got fired somewhere, even if it's completely unrelated. Whatever. You understand what I'm saying? The victory parade. Very important.
The first thing you'll need to do is find a new place to live. Why, look at all those lovely...
By the way, I haven't seen the rest of this clip yet in a while, and they're showing all of these beautiful white houses. I think that what they're probably going to do here, I'm just taking a guess, is have some vilification image to wrap up an association. So, since they just played 3 nice white houses in a row, let's see. I assume that this is pacing and leading, and that within the next 10 seconds, we're going to see some negative anti-white imagery. Let's see.
The suburban homes. How can anyone choose? Now, you don't have to. As a
there you go. Okay, so now we're back in the...
Society chooses for you. You'll be limited to your city's high-crime, low-income neighborhoods, making searching for that home sweet home easy as pie. Ah, the freedom of the open road. Now that you're a minority, driving's a new kind of adventure. Simply driving a car while white means you'll automatically be under suspicion of having committed a violent crime. And when the policeman pulls you over, do exactly what he says. Because in America, it's not unusual for minorities to be shot for not being arrested quickly enough. Until recently, the only crimes people blamed the whites for were harmless violations like corporate malfeasance resulting in global economic collapse and the occasional mass murder. But as a minority, you can...
So the whole thing is just dripping with it, right? Now, by the way, people are saying, oh, it's an uphill battle. Let me just say one thing about this, all right? We're going to talk about victimhood again and victimhood voltage. Why do you know about South Africa? Why do you care about South Africa? Why don't you know about what happened to white people in rural California with illegal immigrants and what's happening right now in specific inner cities like St. Louis and Baltimore with respect to like black on white crime and things like that. But you know about South Africa? You know about it because South Africans have been running a victimhood voltage campaign, and it has gotten international attention. And now Australia, I think, is beginning to let people in. But the only reason you know about them is because they played the game. They're in the game. They have your attention. You know South Africa. You know it better than you know your own local big city metropolis. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. A closed mouth don't get fed. Get in the game. Develop your fucking voltage. The reason I called it voltage is because the greater the negative, right? The greater the difference between the negative and the positive, the more voltage, the more energy in the entire system. If you do not develop that negative energy, you will have no positive energy to use. All right. Payne Gore says this shit makes me want to give up and go watch like porn. This is why I did this sermon in the beginning of this lecture. Okay, this is a personal message right now to the guy who wrote that. Payne Gore, type something in the chat right now, dude. I want you to tell me one thing you're going to do tomorrow that is going to make your life better, or that's going to make you proud. What one thing could you do that's going to make you proud? I don't give a shit if it's 30 push-ups. I told you guys, I made a pledge. I'm going to start my morning runs picking up trash. I have a pair of shitty, like, yellow gloves in my bathroom for scrubbing the toilet and scrubbing the shower and shit like that. I'm going to slap those on tomorrow morning, and I'm going to go for a run, and I'm going to pick up trash because I think that's going to make me feel more proud in my community. I have personally felt a little bit distanced because of how intense I have been going on this lately. And so I want to test the theory of whether or not I can feel more connected to my fellow man by slapping on those gloves and going for a morning run picking up trash. Pain Gore, do not go to the suicide. Step away from the fucking ledge and type one thing. If you're listening, type one thing in this chat right now. I'm not going to go on until Pain Gore types in something. Read a book. Okay. What book? Because you're going to do it tomorrow, Pained. Or you can do it this week. But name the book so that when you come back into this chat on the next stream, people here will be like, they will feel good about themselves if you set an example for all of us. Pained Gore, tell us the book. Tell us the PDF. I'm serious. I'm not going to go on with this stream until everybody here sees what you are accountable towards, because they will feel fucking proud of themselves for you. Autistic Rage said, I'm reading Germany Must Perish as we speak. That is a book. Jesus Christ. Go ahead. You can read the Hasbara Guide, a PDF. Read Persuasion by Robert Cialdini. Can you do that? Let's see. What is the book? Okay, he says, I am. Pain Gore says, I'm scared. Wait, but what did he name the book yet, guys? I'm serious. Can someone give him a book? Read make it a short book, guys. Make it something. Make it a short book. Persuasion. Okay. Although that might take some time. All right. Okay, Persuasion. He named it Persuasion? All right, great. I'm going to remember your name, man. Pained Gore. I'm going to remember your name, and I want to see you in the chat next time, and I want you to tell us that you did this, even if it's next week, okay? All right. Great. In fact, I'm going to take a picture of the Slight Edge. That's a great one. SJW Cringe Machine just said that. I think it's Jeff Olson, The Slight Edge. That is a great book. All right, I'm going to take a picture of the trash bag for you guys so you guys can see how much trash I picked up. All right, enough of that. I don't want to be too Jordan Peterson-ish with this, but the fact is, it is important that we take care of our community. And I do think one of the reasons that Jordan Peterson's message is so effective is because he does set an example of trying to help the community and trying to help men become better men. That's one of the things that Identity Europa is doing that's so effective. All right, enough of this. So here I mentioned what I mentioned on JF's stream earlier, which is a daily reminder that if and when white people become minorities in their countries, they'll be hated and despised. Revenge will be the order of the day. None of the privileges currently afforded by white people to ethnic minorities in white countries will be reciprocated when the roles are reversed. In fact, it will be the opposite, right? Can you imagine a white propaganda film similar to what the Huffington Post did that we just saw? Of course you can't. It's because white culture is merciful. It's honorable. All right. Then, of course, this Zimbabwe meme that I've showed before. Pain Gore says, is Persuasion by who? I'm going to give you a free PDF. The audiobook is great, too. But Pain Gore says, is Persuasion by who? It's by Robert Cialdini. I just posted a link to it. But I'll post it again just for you, Pain Gore. Here you go. And let's see, where is my chat? Here you go. Boom. Pain Gore, read that. It's a short read. It's fantastic. Okay, so then here's another. As an attorney, this was just an amazing article for me to see. In law school, we always read this blog called Above the Law because it's kind of like the gossip blog of the legal world. So there was a new guy who took over, Elie Mystal. He's, I think he's like black gay guy, and he published this article saying here's how black people could use jury nullification to break the justice system. Right, this is the most widely read law blog in the world, and its editor-in-chief says the following. Black people lucky enough to get on a jury could use that power to acquit any person charged with a crime against white men and white male institutions. It's not about the race of the defendant, but if the alleged victim is a white guy or his bank or his position or his authority, we could acquit. Assault, acquit. Burglary, acquit. Insider trading, acquit. No matter what it is, if it's against a white guy or white institution. This is not some homeless guy saying this. This is the editor-in-chief of the most widely read law blog in the world. This is an Overton shock push. If this is permitted to be normal, then you will never be able to call anyone anti-white because your memes will have no gravity. Payne Gore says, thanks guys, I needed this. I am on day 5 of NoFap. Payne Gore, you are the leader of all of us tonight. Okay? We are all putting our faith, our trust, and our love in you to do one good thing for yourself to make yourself proud. When you come back to this chat in the next stream, it's going to be like running a gauntlet of high fives, man. All right? We need you as a religious leader in this movement, okay? You're our dude now. Payne Gore. All right. Now back to this. We're almost at 2 hours, so I'm gonna wrap this up soon. But I want to get through the rest of the thread relatively quickly. Okay, so then I mentioned the ACLU having to retract the. They ran a picture of a white blonde kid's face, saying this is the future that ACL members want, and then their SJW and Jewish members, or basically Twitter sphere, wrote in and saying supporting Nazis. And tweeting, little kids, get your shit together. You thought this was a good idea. Why is it white and blonde, though? Remember, it's because they don't want this little blonde baby to be normal. You have to fight the normalization war. And then the ACLU, of course, like cucks, they totally retracted it. But this is all stuff that you are familiar with. This is another thing that should be considered hate speech. You have to demand it to be hate speech. Signs that say your heritage is hate. You have to say the diametric opposite. My heritage is love, and you are a genocidal maniac. And if you are permitted to be normal, then we are living in a world of racial communism. You have to come right at it and hold frame. So here's a share of white population, of world white population. This is all in the thread that I posted up, but I'll post it again for you guys here. Okay. So then the main event here is what I call the unthinking of white identity, which is an Overton window. Slight typo. This should say identitarian, not identiarian. I left out a T accidentally. But here is one half of the Overton window, right, where you imagine it going the other side with centrist liberal, right, POC identitarian, POC supremacist, right? And imagine an Overton window that goes from centrist to conservative to identitarian to nationalist to supremacist, right? So unthinging is about getting rid of these two things, about getting rid of identitarianism and nationalism and making everything to the right of conservatism supremacy. So here's how it happens. You say there's no such thing. So I said here is a map of right-wing ideologies in the current year with their theoretical position superimposed along the Overton window in blue below. So so remember the Overton window, right? It goes from popular to sensible to acceptable to radical to unthinkable. In the modern world, whatever's considered sensible, the centrist is sensible, right? I would say liberal is normal, at least in the media, in popular culture. Conservative is acceptable, right? It's not the normal. It's not considered sensible by the media, but it is considered acceptable. That is, you won't lose your job over it. The principles of white identitarian politics, that is, white identity politics, with love for everyone, but love for yourself as well, is a radical proposition by modern norms. But it is not unthinkable, and it's not toxic. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a gospel of equality. I mean, you're not even saying at that point nationalism, or you're just saying that I'm proud of my heritage and I'm proud of white people. I have love in my heart. Now, of course, what they do is they say there's no such thing as white identitarianism, or there's no such thing as white nationalism. All there is white supremacism if you're to the right of conservatism, which is what the tactic is. And I show an example of this here from a little Twitter debate I got into like a year ago, where I talked about the diversity industry, and someone said he's complaining from a white supremacist perspective. And I said, I'm an identitarian, not a supremacist. Please correct the record. No need to be reckless with defamation. By the way, always add these frames at the end. If you're going to say I'm not a white supremacist, remember, frame games, do not leave it at that, because if you leave it on that, you are on the back foot. You need to always have a counterclaim. Always have a counterclaim. Okay, that's why I said you need to correct the record. No need to be reckless with the defamation. Right? Always accuse your opponents of something. Do not just deny things. All right? That leaves you looking weak and stupid. All right? Ideally, this is like the touch and go thing, where the last thing you say is accusatory or attacking. That way they pay a social price for attacking you. All right? This is also the school of Donald Trump politics, but it's what wins. All right? So then he writes, I expect white identitarian supremacists to hide their psychopathic racism behind terms like identitarian and alt-right and race realist. Right, and of course, so here, here I ask, the question: is it theoretically possible for anyone to be identitarian but not supremacist? Right? Is it theoretically possible? And I can go into that conversation another time. But the main thing, essentially, what I advocate is really no different than the original Martin Luther King speech in concept. That is, not in practice, which of course turned out to be really little more than black identitarian politics. But I got into this initially because I was like, okay, I believe in this like MLK kind of post-racial world, and then basically found out in university and law school that Martin Luther King was considered to be racist. That is, or you get laughed out of the room if you believe in that, because now everything is about white toxicity and intersectional Afrofeminism. So anyway, so I document the phenomenon here where many of you have had similar conversations. Your views are actually quite uncontroversial. It's just Martin Luther King, identity for all or none. And yet you get called a supremacist, as though everything between neocon and Nazi instantly vaporized and you're either one or the other. This is the zone of unthinking that I get into here, okay? The zone of unthinking. What SJWs will do is say there's no such thing as white identity because it's the same thing as Nazi, right? So what they need to do is they need to unthing these concepts. They need to remove them from speech. They need to make sure that they are demonized and that you never think about these concepts, because these concepts are too powerful and too hard to demonize on their own, and so they need to be in a world where anything to the right of conservatism is white supremacism. They need to prevent you from thinking about these ideas or saying them out loud. The tactic is to remove the thing, a set of ideas that may be quite sensible, from public consideration, because it's not even a thing. Do you understand? That way, anything to the right of conservative, acceptable, becomes unthinkable. This is now if you haven't read this thread already and you don't know what I'm talking about, every time you see a mainstream media leads piece about that has the word "not even a thing," anytime you see that phrase "not even a thing" or "it's not a thing," think about what I'm telling you right now. It's done strategically in order to shift the Overton window, because here is what the new Overton window looks like. When that becomes unthinged, there's nothing between conservative and white supremacist. So the moment you dip your toe into white identitarianism, you become a supremacist. Okay? So here's what the new graph looks like. Because of the unthinging of identitarianism, the entire Overton window shifts, and here's what it looks like. Do you guys see that? And so here is what the entire window looks like then. Because unthinking makes the entire Overton window shift, black identity or Jewish identity or POC identitarianism goes from radical on the other side to sensible. White identity from radical to unthinkable. Do you understand? Because of the unthinking, POC identity goes from radical to sensible, and white identity from radical to unthinkable. So here is what it looks like after the normalization of articles that demonize white identity. POC identitarian becomes sensible. Liberalism becomes the acceptable. Centrist becomes radical. And somewhere between conservative and white supremacist is unthinkable. But there's no identitarianism in between. This is how you use Overton window tactics to shift public affairs, public opinion. So what it does is it normalizes POC identity and makes everything to the right of neocon conservatism unthinkable. So here are some examples of this. Here you go. Casual reminder. This is from Complex Magazine. There's no such thing as reverse racism. There's no such thing as whiteness or white identity. There's no such thing as white pride. So here you go. There's no such thing as white people. There's no such thing as white identity. There's no such thing as a white country. There's no such thing as white culture. Do you understand? This is how you win the battle without raising a sword. By unthinking everything against you. This is why it's important to fight the normalization war. There's no such thing. Be bold, by the way. If you point to FBI crime statistics, drop in that there's no such thing as systemic discrimination or systemic white violence. There's no such thing. There's no such thing. All right. So given that white identity has been unthinged for so long, and remember, listen to those George Lincoln Rockwell college speeches that I told you about. It was unthinged back in the 1960s. So I think about this Mean Girls quote where she tries to make fetch happen. So I say that the task now is to make fetch happen, so to speak. Thing it.
That is so fetch. Gretchen, stop trying to make fetch happen. It's not going to happen.
Our goal is to make fetch happen, so to speak. So I want to, sort of end this by saying that fighting an Overton war is not a strictly principled or Overton one. It is dirty business. It is a frame game. Which brings us full circle. I don't legitimize mainstream media with the title of news. What little information they give, I treat as a lead. That's all. All right, so I believe that is the end of this. I'm sorry, there may be one more. I believe that is the end. Let me make sure that I'm not leaving out any Streamlabs. Thank you for the Streamlabs tonight from Jerry and David Clark. Oh, and I'm sorry, got another one from ZB Peterson, I'll say. He says, my fellow whites, actual whites here, gloat about white minority status, but when do they ever speak of what follows? South Africa, Rhodesia, Haiti, don't feed the trolls. Hell, don't feed the parasitic dependents who want your very genocide. If you want to know more about that, there is a pair of streams that I did with JF that I highly encourage you to check out on his channel. One of them is called The End of White Civilization. He actually titled it that. And he also, another one called What's to Come. And I will put links to both of those in the chat now. What's to Come, JF. And it was 3 hours of me breaking down what happens when whites become a minority in Haiti, Detroit, Washington, D.C., South Africa, Rhodesia, Zimbabwe, and Haiti. So here you go. Here is What's to Come, and then the predecessor to that was the sort of white genocide episode. I just posted the link there, which is which he called the end of white civilization. And here is the link to that. So ZBP, thank you for the Streamlabs. If you haven't already seen these two videos of mine with JF, please do. They are. I took a lot of time to put them together, and I will continue to do so with these episodes, with these streams. I'll try to have more fun in the stream so that they're a bit more uplifting. All right, so I'm going to close this stream in a minute here. Let me just make sure I'm not leaving out any other questions. Let me know if you have any last ones here, but it's getting pretty late here in New York, so I am going to close it out, I believe, with, you know what? Let's do a little bit of outro music. I'm in the mood. Pained Gore. Remember the name. That dude is going to be, is going to represent all of us until the next stream here. Feel free to DM me on Twitter too, Pained Gore. I want to keep in touch with you and make sure that you have an accountability partner, you have somebody who is on your side trying to make things better. All right. Good night, guys. Until next time.